Her daughter-in-law called her just the money within earshot on Thanksgiving Day. Martha Green, retired bookkeeper and quiet backbone of the family, didn't flinch. By week's end, the deed was flagged, the lien activated, and the house legally hers again. She'd funded their future without asking for credit. But now, the invoice had a line for disrespect. Ben stayed silent during the insult. That silence cost him 2,100 square feet. And when they begged for a second chance, she mailed them a receipt instead. Wait, before we go any further, I gotta ask, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments and don't forget to subscribe. The dining table stretched longer than Martha remembered. 10 seats, all filled, with mismatched wine glasses glinting in the soft, curated glow of pendant lights Erica had chosen for their modern warmth. It was Thanksgiving in Boulder, and everything, from the charcuterie board to the artificial eucalyptus napkin rings, looked like it had been peeled off a lifestyle influencer's feed. Martha sat at the far end, near the window, a modest cranberry dish cooling beside her untouched water glass. She wore the brooch Ben had given her when he was 12, a tiny gold maple leaf he'd saved up allowance for. He hadn't commented on it. "I just want to say how grateful I am," Erica began, rising with a wine glass lifted in a perfectly practiced gesture. Her blowout hadn't moved in hours. "To everyone who helped us get here, to new beginnings in our forever home." Ben smiled vaguely beside her, adjusting his tie even though no one else wore one. Erica continued, "To family, friends, and especially to my parents for helping with the staging and the Hendersons for their contractor referral. Seriously, we couldn't have done this without all of you." Martha's fingers curled slightly around her fork. No mention, not a glance. She swallowed and passed the stuffing platter to her left. Later, the kids disappeared to the basement with a plate of pie and a second round of wine circulated. Diane leaned over from the edge of the sectional, whispering, "Tell me again why I agreed to be the only non-relative here." "Because I asked you to," Martha murmured, "and I needed a witness." The conversation had moved into the kitchen now. Ben was rinsing dishes while Erica poured herself another glass, backlit by the island lights like she was center stage. Talia was in the corner with her coloring book, earbuds in, though Martha noticed her eyes wandered often, quiet, observant. "I mean," Erica said, swirling her glass, "we don't owe her anything. She just gave us money. No strings, right?" Martha's head turned slightly. Her heart didn't race, but it dropped, like a slow elevator in an old building. Ben didn't respond. "She didn't ask for repayment, so I don't think we should feel guilty every time she comes over. It's awkward, you know? Like she's waiting for us to bow or something." Diane's hand froze midair with a cracker halfway to her mouth. "I didn't ask for anything," Martha said, her voice low but clear. Erica turned slightly. "Oh, Martha, no, I didn't mean it like that. I mean, you were generous, but we all contribute in different ways. Emotional support, help with Talia, you know." "I remember what I gave," Martha said. "It wasn't emotional support. It was $98,000. Ben dropped a fork into the sink with a clang. "Mom!" "No," she said softly, rising. "It's fine." She pushed her plate an inch away. Talia noticed, looked up, and their eyes met. The girl said nothing, but the crease in her brow tightened. She saw everything. Erica shrugged. "We're all family. I just think it's weird to keep score." Diane stood up next. "She's not keeping score. She wrote the check." No one answered. Later, as coats were grabbed and dessert packed into Tupperware, Erica gave Martha a stiff, one-armed hug. "You're coming for Christmas, right?" Martha smiled gently. "We'll see." In the car, Diane muttered, "Tell me you still have the paperwork." Martha didn't answer, but when she got home, she didn't take off her coat. She walked to the hall closet, pulled down the lockbox from the top shelf, and carried it to the kitchen. The combination was still the same, Ben's birthday, reversed. Inside was a single envelope. She slid it out, unfolded the crisp page. Deed addendum, conditional transfer, Green residence, signed and notarized 3 years ago. Clause 5. C. In cases of sale, abuse, or public repudiation of lender, lien may be reactivated without notice. Martha read the line once, then again. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She simply placed the document on the table, turned on the kettle, and sat down to wait. The pen had barely dried when they left the office that day, 3 years ago, almost to the week. Martha remembered watching Erica flip the document packet with manicured fingers, signing her name as though it were a grocery list, not a deed. Ben had asked one question. So, this just makes it official that Mom's helping with the down payment, right? Jordan Ellis, her attorney, had answered clearly, calmly, correct, and that the contribution is protected as a secured interest should certain conditions not be honored. Erica didn't even pause. Right. Sure, we're not selling. We're not going anywhere. And you're not disrespecting her in public or private, Martha had said, folding her hands in her lap. Her tone wasn't harsh. It was measured like a tape stretched straight. Erica had laughed. We're all family here. This is just legalese, right? Jordan had glanced at Martha, then nodded. Legalese. With consequences. Now, sitting at her dining table with the document spread before her and the cold early morning air curling under the door, Martha reread Clause 5C slowly. In the event of slander, repudiation, abuse, or unauthorized property sale, lender may reclaim secured interest through legal enforcement of lien with no additional notice to co-signers. She remembered how Erica had tapped the paper twice and said, "We're lucky to have her," not looking at Martha as she did it. They'd both signed. They hadn't read. Martha had. Word by word. Twice. She slid the deed addendum into a fresh folder, stood, and walked across the house to the study. The phone rang 3 times before Jordan answered. "Green?" he said, voice already alert. "Wasn't expecting to hear from you till the new year." "Change of plans," Martha replied, her tone as steady as the paperweight on her desk. "We're activating the clause." A pause. "Thanksgiving?" "Erica said they owed me nothing," she replied. In front of a table full of people, Ben didn't say a word. "That's public repudiation." Jordan exhaled. "You always had the right. You sure you want to enforce it?" "I didn't draw the line." "They did," Martha said. "I just gave them a pen." "This won't be quiet," Jordan warned. "Real estate litigation never is, especially not in Boulder. Once the title gets flagged, it'll hit every realty feed in the county." "Neither was Thanksgiving," she replied. Jordan made a low sound, half laugh, half resignation. "I'll draft the notice of conditional lien and send it to county records. You'll get a confirmation when the title's flagged." "Thank you, Jordan." "And Martha?" he added. "No one expects this from you. That's going to work in your favor." Martha hung up and stared out the window. The sunrise was just starting to frost the flat irons in orange light. She remembered helping Ben and Erica move in, how she'd bought the washer and dryer when their credit was too tight, how she'd planted lavender in the backyard herself. She remembered handing Erica a housewarming basket with a note that said, "No need to say thank you, just build something worth it." Now she reached into her desk drawer and pulled out that same card. She still had the matching stationery. She set it next to the new folder. She would need it again, this time not as a blessing, but as a receipt. The letter arrived on a Monday morning, neatly folded, hand-delivered by a courier in a gray vest and mirrored sunglasses. He knocked twice on the Greens' front door, nodded once when Ben opened it, and walked away before questions could form. Ben stood in the foyer holding the envelope, the county clerk's seal embossed in the corner. Erica breezed by in a silk robe, coffee in hand, hair wrapped in a towel. "More RSVPs for Talia's winter recital?" she asked, half distracted. "No," Ben muttered, already tearing it open. The words didn't land immediately, just disjointed phrases, scattered between legal terms and fine print. "Notice of claim, Green residence, Boulder County. Activation of conditional lien filed by Martha Green. Title, under legal review pending enforcement action." Ben read it again, and again. The hallway spun, suddenly too bright. "Erica!" he called, voice sharp. She turned, annoyed. "What?" He handed her the letter. Her eyebrows shot up, mouth tightening into a straight line. "What the hell is this?" Ben didn't answer. He was already pulling out his phone. Across town, Martha was watering her window herbs. Basil, sage, a pot of lavender grown from a clipping she'd rescued when Erica threatened to replace the garden with turf. The phone rang. She didn't check the screen. She already knew. "Hi, Ben," she said, voice calm, even. His voice came back strained and loud. "Mom, what did you do? There's a notice on our title. Says the house is under review because of some lien you filed?" "That's correct," she said. "You can't just... You're threatening our home. You're putting us at risk. Talia..." "I'm not threatening anything," she interrupted softly. "I'm exercising a clause in a contract you signed. It was supposed to be a gift." "You don't get to redefine what you didn't read," Martha said, setting the watering can down. "At Thanksgiving, Erica said you owed me nothing. I'm showing you what nothing looks like in writing." Silence. Then, quieter, Ben asked, "Why didn't you just talk to me?" "You were there," she said. "You just didn't speak." Click. The line went dead. Martha didn't sigh. She didn't lean on anything. She simply went back to her plants. Back at the green home, Erica had pulled her laptop into the dining room and was typing furiously. "I'm calling this extortion," she hissed. "I don't care what we signed, this is blackmail wrapped in a family feud." Ben sat at the kitchen bar, elbows on his knees, eyes on the floor. "She didn't hide it, Erica. You think I care what your mother claims we signed 3 years ago?" She was already on speakerphone with someone. "This is outrageous. We have a child in this house. This is harassment." Jordan's voice crackled through the phone, low and deliberate. "Mrs. Green, this is not harassment. It's called contract enforcement." "I'm not Mrs. Green," she snapped. "That title belongs to her, apparently. You and Mr. Green are listed as co-signers on a deed with conditional clauses you both signed. As a registered legal interest, Martha Green has the right to reclaim that interest if conditions are breached." "This is insane." "No, ma'am," Jordan replied. "This is real estate law." Erica ended the call without a goodbye, then slammed her laptop shut and stood so quickly her chair scraped across the hardwood. "I'm getting my own lawyer," she said. "I'm not letting your mother toss us out like some bitter judge in a Lifetime movie." Ben didn't move, didn't answer. Erica was already tapping her phone. "Tiffany's husband is a litigator. I'm calling him now. I want to know exactly how enforceable this is." Ben finally looked up. "It's enforceable, Erica. That's the point." She ignored him. Her heels echoed through the hall as she retreated to the bedroom, dialing with purpose. Martha, meanwhile, placed the original notarized deed into a fireproof envelope, sealed it, and placed it back inside her lockbox. Her fingers didn't tremble once. The paper had always been there. They just never imagined she'd use it. The restaurant was quiet. Dim sconces glowing against exposed brick, the low murmur of early weekday diners just beginning their entrees. But at the round table near the back, beneath a hanging light that made everything feel too close, 4 people sat across invisible battle lines. Jordan Ellis arrived first, calm in a charcoal suit with a leather portfolio in hand. Martha followed, a beat behind, in a soft navy sweater and silver earrings Ben had given her for her 60th birthday. She wore them like armor. Ben and Erica arrived last. She wore heels too high for the weather and a scowl sharp enough to slice through glass. Ben, pale and silent, clutched his phone like it might save him. The waiter took their drink orders, 2 sparkling waters, 1 white wine, and a bourbon, neat. Only Martha declined. When the waiter left, silence settled in like fog. "I appreciate you coming," Jordan began evenly, "so we can attempt resolution before this becomes something more formal." Erica didn't wait. "Resolution?" Her voice was loud, brittle. "You mean before my mother-in-law sells the roof over our daughter's head?" Martha didn't flinch. "It's not your roof," she said gently. "It was mine. Then it was shared. Now it's contested." Ben shifted in his seat. Jordan calmly opened his folder and pulled out a series of clipped documents. "Let's clarify what's at stake," he said. "Here we have Clause A, the conditional repayment agreement in case of sale or breach of agreement. Clause B, cohabitation terms, respect clause, and protection against hostile redefinition of the loan. And this," he slid the 3rd folder across the table toward Ben, "is your notarized acceptance, signed by both of you, dated March 17th, 3 years ago." Erica barely looked. We didn't read that. We trusted her. You treated her gift like a throwaway, Jordan replied, unfazed. Now it's legally reclaimed. Ben said nothing. His fingers drummed lightly against the table, his eyes fixed on the edge of his napkin. Martha watched him for a moment, then looked away. Erica leaned forward. This is family. You don't get to use fine print against us like we're strangers in court. Martha lifted her glass of water and took a small sip. Then she said simply, You made me one. The air thickened. Even the waiter on his way back with drinks paused and pivoted away. You could have come to us, Ben said, voice small. I was at your table, Martha replied. You let her tell the room I was just money. You let it sit there. Jordan slid another paper across. This is your updated notice of intent to sell. It will be filed by end of week unless an alternate agreement is proposed, one that includes financial restitution and a written acknowledgement of breach. You want a letter? Erica barked. You want an apology note like we're in 3rd grade? Martha folded her hands in her lap. I want respect, but I'll settle for paperwork. The bourbon sat untouched. Ben looked like he might be sick. You're really going through with this? He whispered. You'd throw your own son and granddaughter out? Martha's face softened for only a flicker of a second. I'm not throwing anyone out, Ben. I'm just reclaiming what I built. If you choose to leave, that's your decision. Erica pushed her chair back sharply. The scrape against tile made heads turn. This is unbelievable. Martha turned to Jordan, voice clear. File the intent. Jordan gave a single nod. Understood. The click of Martha's mouse echoed louder than it should have. Final field, submitted. The house, their house, was now live on the market. List price, $780,000. Status, active. Agent, Monica Bradley, of Bradley & Byrne. She leaned back in her chair, the creak of the old oak frame like a whisper of finality. Outside, Boulder's early December chill painted frost onto her window. She didn't feel it. Not anymore. Monica's no-nonsense, Diane had promised the day before, adjusting her bright red scarf like a battle banner. She once closed a $1.1 million teardown just because someone dared lowball her. Now Monica's cobalt blue BMW was already parked outside Ben and Erica's Craftsman, her heels hitting the driveway like gavel strikes. Erica came out the door in a flurry, bathrobe, coffee cup, hair tied, but wild. What the hell is this? She demanded, standing in Monica's path. Monica didn't blink. I'm your broker's broker. Please step aside. I've got a house to shoot and stage. This is my daughter's home. No, ma'am, Monica replied, eyes cutting sharp beneath aviator lenses. This is a secured asset currently under contract violation. You can speak with your legal representative. I'm here to work. Ben stood in the doorway behind her, frozen, holding Talia's school backpack. Across the street, 2 neighbors walked their retrievers slower than usual, heads craning, whispering. At her bungalow, Martha was sorting paperwork when Talia's knock came, 3 soft taps, like she wasn't sure she had permission. Martha opened the door and saw her granddaughter in a puffer coat too big for her, cheeks flushed from the wind. Can I sit for a minute? Talia asked, already stepping inside. Of course, honey. They settled into the worn love seat, the one Martha never reupholstered because it still smelled faintly of lemon oil and Henry's aftershave. Is this because Mom said that thing about the money? Talia asked quietly. Martha swallowed. Your mom said something hurtful, yes. But this isn't about you. She says you're doing this to punish us. Martha took a deep breath, steady and warm. Sweetheart, sometimes adults make decisions to protect what they worked for. Not to hurt people, but to teach them the value of what they had. Are you mad at me? The words cracked something in Martha. She blinked twice, then reached out and hugged Talia tight against her chest. No, baby, she whispered. Not even a little bit. You're the only person in that house who made me feel seen. Later that day, Jordan sent over the press draft. A 1-page statement, just dry enough to be bulletproof, just sharp enough to leave a mark. Private lender reclaiming secured interest due to contract breach and verbal misconduct. Sale to proceed legally and without delay. It was subtle, but it carried weight. Within hours, a local real estate blog picked it up, then a neighborhood forum. Whispers turned to murmurs. One post read, "Wait, is this about the Thanksgiving thing?" Monica moved fast, a virtual tour. Sunset photos, deep staging with neutral tones and eucalyptus bundles in the bathrooms. It didn't matter that Erica hadn't packed a thing. Monica brought rolling bins and a full-time assistant. The next day, during an open house, a couple in their early 30s walked through the foyer. She was pregnant. He had calloused hands and a notebook in his back pocket. They didn't flinch at the price. "They said it's clean title after closing?" the man asked. "Absolutely," Monica replied. "Seller is fully authorized and has proof of claim enforcement." The woman smiled. "Then we're interested." Martha didn't say anything that night. She just watched the sun dip behind the Rockies from her back porch, tea steaming in her mug, the city lights flickering on like a quiet applause. Her phone buzzed once, a message from Monica. "Offer received. Full cash. No contingencies. They want a fast close." The knock came just after sunrise. 3 quick raps, a pause, then one more. Not frantic, but rehearsed, like someone trying to sound casual after practicing nervousness in the mirror. Martha opened the door to find Ben standing there, wind-chapped, holding a brown paper bakery bag that smelled faintly of almond and butter. He looked tired, not just sleep-deprived, hollowed out. "I brought the croissants you like," he said, as if that was enough to rewrite 3 years and 1 Thanksgiving. Martha took the bag, stepped aside. "You can come in." Ben followed her to the kitchen where the kettle was already steaming. She didn't offer him coffee. He didn't ask. "They said you got a cash offer." His voice cracked somewhere between disbelief and panic. Martha folded the top of the bag, sealing the air in. "Full price, no contingencies." Silence hovered as the kettle whistled. She poured water over a chamomile bag and leaned against the counter. "Mom," Ben began, "is there a way, any way, to pause all of this? Just hit stop for a minute?" Martha turned, her eyes soft but impenetrable. "You had 3 years to be grateful. You used 10 seconds to dismiss me." Ben looked down. "I didn't mean—" Erica was— "I know who said it," she interrupted, her voice calm. "I also know who sat beside her and let it land." He didn't argue, just rubbed his hands together like a man trying to generate warmth he hadn't earned. "She's freaking out," he admitted. "She sent some kind of apology to your lawyer. I haven't even seen it. Probably filled with the wrong kind of sorry." Martha reached for her phone, opened the email she'd received from Jordan the night before, and handed it to Ben. He read silently. Erica's subject line read, "Amicable clarification. Thanksgiving miscommunication." The body was worse. Apology couched in terms like, "if there was offense taken," and "family dynamics are often misinterpreted." "She says you're being vindictive," Ben muttered, scrolling, "and legally aggressive." Martha sipped her tea. "You can't insult someone for using their voice and then complain when they speak." He stared at the floor. "She's afraid you'll ruin our reputation." Martha tilted her head, one brow rising. "You already did that when you made me invisible at your table." Across town, Diane stirred her oatmeal while reading the online forum for their neighborhood. Update. House already under contract. Wow, that was fast. Good for her. She laughed alone in her kitchen and muttered, "Damn right." Later she stopped by Martha's with 2 dog-eared books and her usual lack of subtlety. "He came crawling, didn't he?" she asked, dropping onto the sofa like a cat claiming its throne. "He came bearing carbs," Diane snorted. "Guilt glazed with powdered sugar?" Martha gave a small smile but said nothing. Diane tapped the armrest. "Don't soften." She tried to paint over you like you were trim, but you're the foundation. That evening, as twilight settled over the Boulder foothills and the wind started whispering against the bare trees, Martha's phone buzzed with a new text. It was simple. From Talia. "Can I stay with you this weekend?" Martha stared at the screen for a long moment, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. The light in the kitchen cast long shadows across the counter, stretching toward the brown bag Ben had left behind. She hadn't opened it. She didn't need to. Her reply was just as simple. Talia arrived with a pink duffel bag slung over one shoulder and a book already open in her hands. No knock, no hesitation. Martha opened the door to find her granddaughter halfway through Anne of Green Gables, her little lips mouthing silent words while she walked. Martha's throat caught. Talia looked too grown and too small all at once. "I brought my stuff," Talia said, looking up with a half smile. "And Mom said not to ask you for anything." "Good thing I planned everything anyway," Martha replied softly and stepped aside. Inside, the house smelled like vanilla and rosemary. A pie was cooling on the stove, its golden crust crackling slightly in the warmth of the kitchen. Talia's eyes lit up. "You baked?" "I always do," Martha said. "Some people use timers. I use memory." Talia giggled and kicked off her sneakers, the ones with the faded unicorn patches. She moved through the space like she belonged, because once, before the new house and the wedge between holidays, she did. That evening, after cinnamon toast and cocoa, they settled on the floor with potting soil and a tray of overgrown houseplants. Talia had always loved repotting. "It's like giving the roots a fresh start," she once said when she was 7. Now, at 10, she held a trowel like a surgeon. "You're still good at this," Martha murmured, easing a jade plant into a deeper terracotta bowl. Talia glanced up. "Mom says you're doing all this because you're mad." Martha paused. "And what do you think?" "I think maybe you're doing it because no one said thank you." Talia frowned. "But Mom says you're hurting us to make a point." Martha wiped her hands on a towel. The silence lingered before she finally answered, "I'm not doing this to hurt anyone, sweetheart. I'm doing it so people understand what words cost when they're said too easily and without care, especially when they're said in front of people who hear everything." Talia nodded slowly, as if filing it somewhere she'd need later. Later, while putting supplies away in the hall closet, Talia reached for a shoebox that had been tucked behind old photo albums. It slipped and spilled. Open. Pictures fluttered to the floor, black and white, some curling at the edges. She held one up. "Who's this?" Martha turned. The photo in Talia's hands was of her and Ben. He was 7, muddy from a soccer game, Martha smiling down at him like the sun had risen just for that snapshot. "That's your dad and me, before any of this?" Talia studied the picture. "You looked happy." Martha smiled faintly. "I was." She didn't cry. She took the photo gently, wiped the corner clean, and set it aside on the entryway table. That night, after Talia went to bed, she framed it. On Sunday morning, the phone rang at exactly 9:17 a.m. Martha let it go to voicemail, then again at 9:25. This time, she answered. It was Erica. The voice came hot and sharp. "You're using her, using my daughter to play the victim in front of your neighbors. It's disgusting." "She asked to stay with me," Martha replied evenly. "You could have said no." "I won't punish a child for her parents' behavior." There was a long silence, then cold as frost. "You don't get to turn my daughter against me." Martha didn't reply. She hung up without slamming the receiver, but the air seemed heavier afterward. That evening, just after Talia fell asleep with a lavender sachet on her pillow and Anne draped across her chest, Martha sat at the kitchen table and opened her email. A new message from Monica blinked at the top of her inbox. Subject: Final sale, packet enclosed body. All terms cleared. Buyer confirmed. Closing date in 12 days. Please sign and return at your earliest convenience. Martha exhaled. Slow, even, and final. She clicked download. The sky was flat and gray the morning of the final walkthrough, the kind of cold that sat on your bones before you even opened the door. Martha arrived 5 minutes early, parking 2 houses down, watching the driveway from her window like a quiet witness to a funeral. The front door opened just before the hour mark. The buyers, a young couple named Jared and Elise, stepped out smiling, armed with a clipboard and polite optimism. Jared wore a beanie that matched his earnestness. Elise had boots too clean for winter and eyes full of forward thinking. Behind them came Erica. Martha hadn't invited her. She came anyway. "I have a right to be here," Erica snapped the moment their eyes met. "This is still my home, for now." Elise offered a neutral smile and extended her hand to Martha. "Thank you for meeting us. We're excited." Martha shook it, warm palm to warm palm. Glad to pass it on. Let's walk. Inside, the air was scrubbed of scent. No spices, no perfume, no trace of the holidays they'd once hosted, just lemon cleaner and drywall dust. The house echoed slightly, a home already half forgotten by its owners and not yet loved by its inheritors. Elise opened cabinets. Jared tested light switches and windows. Martha moved silently through the rooms, her footsteps muffled on the beige carpet she'd never chosen but still helped fund. In the dining room, she paused by the bay window. This was where Talia had once danced in socks on Christmas Eve, giggling about Santa tracking over Colorado. Now the window framed nothing but leafless branches and the stiff backs of neighbors who had probably read every local forum post. "Did you have to list it so fast?" Erica muttered behind her. Martha didn't answer. She walked past, unbothered. They reached the kitchen. Elise opened a drawer and found the note Martha had tucked inside. White stationery, plain ink. Earn what you keep. Elise's eyes flicked up in surprise, then settled into something deeper. She closed the drawer gently. Behind them, Erica hissed under her breath. "That's so petty." Martha turned to her. "Number, that's a reminder, one you might have benefited from earlier." Erica's mouth twisted, but before she could fire back, Jared cut in lightly. "We're just grateful to be here. The bones of this house are strong." "They should be," Martha said. "I reinforced them." The tour ended in the upstairs guest room, the one Martha knew had been turned into Erica's walk-in vanity. It was empty now, save for a full-length mirror leaning against the wall, forgotten or deliberately left. Martha caught her own reflection, older, yes, but unbroken. She gave herself a nod, then turned toward the stairs. "I hope you enjoy your next chapter," she said to no one in particular, but the couple nodded and Erica did not. As Martha stepped onto the porch, Erica called after her, "You'll regret this. One day, you'll sit alone in that tiny house and wish we needed you." Martha paused at the bottom step. "I'd rather be needed by no one," she said, than dismissed by someone who mistakes generosity for weakness. Ben had been quiet the whole walk through, arms crossed in the living room, leaning against the wall like he was part of it. He didn't follow her outside. He didn't say goodbye. That hurt, but not enough to stop her. Later that afternoon, Martha sat across from Jordan in his sunlit office, Boulder's cityscape muted through frosted glass. She handed him the check, neat, crisp, and clean. "Make it neat," she said like she was settling an old tab. Jordan nodded, sliding the envelope into a file folder. "It already is," he replied. The invoice wasn't written in anger. It was drafted with precision. Numbers, dates, and tone all sharpened like the tip of a fountain pen used for signatures, not sentiment. Martha sat across from Jordan again, the legal pad between them lined with arithmetic that felt more personal than any diary. "Principal, $180,000. Jordan read aloud. "Adjusted interest across 3 years, $16,200. Damages, verbal defamation, emotional breach, reputation impact." He paused. Martha looked out the office window, eyes dry. "Just call it what it is. Disrespect. Put it under its own heading." Jordan raised an eyebrow, but typed it in without comment. By Friday morning, 2 crisp copies of the invoice sat on Martha's dining table, sealed in manila envelopes. She used her neatest handwriting for the accompanying note. "You may keep the furniture. Consider this the part of generosity that now comes with a receipt. MG." She mailed them without ceremony. No hesitation, no regret. It took less than a day for Erica to respond, loudly and publicly. She posted a 6-slide rant on her Instagram story, captioned, "When your ML thinks she's the IRS." Slide 1 was a screenshot of the invoice total. Slide 2 was a filtered photo of Talia crying in her bedroom. Slide 3 was Erica's explanation about being blindsided by greed masquerading as morality. Slide 4 had a Starbucks cup for some reason. Slide 5 quoted a toxic family meme. Slide 6 was a selfie, smiling, but the comments didn't rally to her defense. One follower wrote, "She gave you a house and you went public first?" Another, "Should have just said thank you, costs $0. By evening, Erica had deleted all 6 slides. Ben called at 9:42 p.m., voice cracking before the first sentence. "Mom, I didn't know it would get this far. I didn't realize how much it cost you." Martha stayed quiet. "You know I wouldn't have let her say that if I thought it would lead to—" "You let her say it," Martha interrupted, "and then you said nothing after." He exhaled sharply, like a man who'd just been told he lost something he never checked to see if he still had. "It wasn't the words," she added. "It was the silence after them that echoed loudest." Ben whispered something she couldn't quite make out. Then the line went dead. The next morning, Diane arrived with a bag of bagels and a mood. "So," she said, plopping down at Martha's kitchen table and tearing into a cinnamon raisin, "you mailed them a bill." "An invoice," Martha corrected. Diane snorted. "Same thing. But honey, hell of a receipt." She lifted her coffee cup in salute. Martha chuckled for the first time in days. "Not sure they'll pay." Diane shrugged. "Doesn't matter. It was never about the check. It was about checking them." The mailbox clicked shut 2 days later with a pale blue envelope inside. Martha opened it, expecting another retort. Instead, it was a card with a simple handwritten note. "We would love to take you to lunch and thank you in person. There's more to our story than buying a house." Elise and Jared Martha stared at the card for a long time. There was no angle to it, no performance, just sincerity. She tucked it next to the invoice, folded once, and walked to the window. Outside, the wind stirred the bare trees. This was what cleanup looked like after a storm. The cafe was quiet, almost reverent, like it sensed something deeper than lattes and polite conversation was about to unfold. Martha sat by the window with her hands folded neatly around a mug of herbal tea. Across from her, Elise and Jared looked nervous, not in a way that asked for approval, but in the way people do when they're trying to honor something sacred. "We wanted to say this in person," Elise began, her fingers wrapped tight around a napkin. "This isn't just a house for us, it's a restart. One we didn't think we'd ever get." Jared nodded. "We were evicted last spring. Our landlord hiked the rent mid-lease, said he needed the place for family. We had a newborn, no savings. We ended up staying in her sister's garage for a month." Martha felt the air tighten between them, not from pity, but recognition. She knew what it meant to rebuild from humiliation. "And now?" she asked softly. Elise smiled, eyes glassy. "Now we have keys, a mailbox, a place where our baby's first steps won't be between someone else's boxes." Martha's fingers rested gently on her teacup. "Then make it mean something." Later that afternoon, she sat at her desk, the sunlight catching in the dust motes dancing around her bookshelf. She opened her laptop and logged into her credit union account. Under New Account Name, she typed, Second Foundation. She deposited $100,000 of the sales profit. Not out of guilt, not even out of hope, but as a tether, to make sure her next act of generosity had roots and rails. That evening, Jordan called to finalize the last set of transfer records. "You did something most people only talk about," he said. "You didn't just reclaim money, you reclaimed the narrative." "I'm not interested in a story," Martha replied. "Just results." He laughed. "You've got both." The sun was just beginning to sink behind the foothills when Martha checked her mailbox. Mixed in with circulars and a credit card offer was a folded pink paper with glitter along the edges. She opened it slowly. In bright purple crayon, the words were slanted, imperfect, and completely perfect. "Thank you for standing up. You're my safe place. Love." Talia Martha's hand went to her chest. Not out of sadness, not out of longing, but from a quiet sense of confirmation. She took the note inside and pinned it above her desk, just below a photo of her and Talia from the sleepover weekend. Flour on their noses, smiles caught mid-laugh. She was halfway through a chamomile brew when the doorbell rang. It was late, past friendly drop-by hours. She opened the door cautiously, porch light flooding the top step. There, standing alone in a trench coat with mascara smudged under her eyes, was Erica. No Ben, no Talia, no apology in hand. Just silence. The porch light cast a halo around Erica's head, but it didn't soften the tension in her jaw. Martha didn't move. She stood in the doorway, hand on the frame, body half turned inward as if unsure whether to greet a guest or close the door on a solicitor. Erica's voice cracked first. We're looking at rentals now, places with mold and broken fences and no insulation." Martha blinked. "I'm sorry to hear that." Erica stared at her like the words were written in a different language. "No," she said, her voice louder. "You're not. You're enjoying this. You wanted to humiliate me. Us." Martha sighed quietly, then leaned against the doorframe. "If I wanted to humiliate you, I would have let the neighbors in on the specifics." Erica's lips thinned. "It was a joke. That night, at dinner. A dumb joke. You took it and twisted it into litigation." Martha didn't flinch. So was the deed, until it was real. For a long moment, the wind was the only thing that moved between them, curling around the porch rail and rustling the half-dead mums Erica had dropped off 2 Thanksgivings ago. "You're supposed to be the bigger person," Erica said suddenly. "You're the mother." Martha gave a slight shake of the head. "I was the lender. You made that very clear." Across the street, Diane had stepped out with a glass of wine, barefoot in her driveway. She leaned on the hood of her car, arms folded, watching with no attempt at subtlety. Erica glanced over and hissed, "Is that your little Greek chorus?" Martha's lips curved, faint but firm. "Number, that's someone who watched me write every check with hope and every silence with doubt." Erica's breath came fast now. "You've ruined everything. My reputation, Ben's peace, Talia's—" "Don't," Martha cut in. Her voice dropped, cold and sharp as frost. "Don't you drag that child in as a prop for your remorse." For the first time since arriving, Erica looked small. Her makeup had settled into the corners of her eyes. Her coat belt hung loose. Her arms had dropped to her sides like they'd run out of fight. "We're a family," she whispered. "Family," Martha said slowly, "isn't a place you show up to only when your comfort's threatened." Erica stared, her mouth pressed into a colorless line. Martha stepped forward but didn't break the line of the threshold. "Respect isn't a receipt. It's not attached to a check. It's how you speak when no one's watching, and how you listen when someone's hurting." Erica didn't respond. Her face was unreadable now. Less rage, more recognition, or perhaps a final resignation. Without a word, she turned and walked down the steps, the sound of her heels sharp on the concrete. Diane raised her glass slightly as Erica passed, but said nothing. Just held Martha's gaze until Erica's car pulled away. Martha closed the door gently. She didn't feel triumphant. She felt clean. Back in her study, her inbox blinked with a new message. Subject: Financial Literacy and Family Boundaries. Lecture invitation. From Boulder Community College. She opened it and read the line that caught her breath. "We believe your voice and experience would empower our students to better understand financial stewardship and emotional equity." The microphone gave a soft click as Martha adjusted it with practiced care. Her blouse was neatly pressed, navy with pearl buttons. Her hands didn't shake. Not anymore. A projector buzzed behind her, casting the words, "Boundaries in Generational Giving," across a cream wall in the college auditorium. The room was modest. 50 seats, most filled with students in hoodies, cross-legged with notebooks or iced coffees, balanced in laps. But when Martha spoke, the room sharpened. "I gave my son and daughter-in-law the down payment for their first home," she began. "I told myself it was a gift. But gifts, I've learned, should come with clarity, especially when they're misunderstood as unconditional." A few students sat straighter. One girl in the second row stopped scrolling and looked up. "I'm not here to vent," Martha continued. "I'm here because no amount of love should require you to accept being erased. Help should never come at the cost of your dignity." A young man near the aisle leaned forward, elbow on knee, eyes narrowed with curiosity. Martha's voice didn't falter, but it softened. Family can make things messy. So can silence, especially when it's used like a scalpel instead of a salve. She paused. "The first mistake I made wasn't writing the check. It was assuming they understood the weight of what I'd handed over, not just money but sacrifice, memory, years of thrift in the name of their future." There was stillness. Even the girl who'd come in late, huffing and shuffling in boots, had stopped fidgeting. "And when my worth was reduced to a joke at Thanksgiving, I activated a clause I'd included not because I didn't trust them, but because I still believed in protecting myself, and I do not regret that. A student near the back raised a hand shyly. Would you still do it again? Martha smiled gently. I'd help, she said, but I'd read the room better, and I'd write the boundaries in bolder ink. Laughter broke out. Light, appreciative. Applause followed. Not wild, but grounded. Sincere. Like students who knew the price of being overlooked and the ache of speaking too late. Afterward, students lined up to shake her hand. Some introduced themselves. One girl with buzzed hair said, I think my mom needs to hear this. Do you speak elsewhere? I'm learning to, Martha said, slipping a business card into the girl's hand, and I hope she hears you too. From the back of the auditorium, someone stood silently. A petite figure, hair pulled back in a low ponytail, eyes wide and still. Talia. Martha hadn't seen her slip in, but now, as the crowd thinned, the girl walked down the aisle, backpack slung over one shoulder. I like the part about writing boundaries in bold ink, Talia said softly. Martha's chest tightened, but she only nodded. That one took me 67 years to learn. Talia stepped closer, arms suddenly around her grandmother's waist. It wasn't rushed. It was real. You did the right thing, she whispered, even if it didn't feel good at first. Martha held her tightly, resting her chin gently against the girl's crown. The scent of shampoo and bubblegum lip gloss filled her senses. And for a brief moment, it melted everything else. They stood like that a beat longer than either expected. That evening, back at home, Martha reheated a bowl of soup, letting the silence of her house settle around her like an old quilt. She was spooning broth into a chipped ceramic bowl when her phone buzzed on the counter. One new voicemail. Ben. She pressed play. His voice cracked slightly on the second word. Hey, Mom. I know I don't deserve a warm welcome, but I wanted you to know I want to fix this. Alone, if I have to. I just need to try. Please. Martha spotted him from the kitchen window, Ben standing at the edge of her white picket fence, holding a paper grocery bag in each arm like a peace offering. No honking, no text, no wife. Just him, in jeans and a navy fleece zipped halfway up. His shoulders looked heavier than the bags. She didn't move to open the door right away. Instead, she stood in the quiet hum of her kitchen, her hand still on the faucet, water running gently over a pair in the sink. The moment stretched long, half of her waiting, half of her bracing. Then she exhaled, turned the knob, and stepped onto the porch. I brought eggs, Ben said, and coffee, and I didn't know what else. I just figured, Sunday. Martha didn't smile, but she didn't shut the door either. Come in, she said simply. Let's see if you still remember how to make an omelet without burning it. In the kitchen, the silence wasn't tense. It was tentative, like a song waiting for its first note. Martha chopped scallions while Ben whisked eggs, the way he used to in high school before robotics club. The pan sizzled, and for a moment it was just cooking, not repairing. I let someone else set the tone for my loyalty, Ben finally said. He didn't look up. Martha paused mid-stir. And now? I'm trying to tune it back, he said, to what I used to know before it got so damn loud. The eggs browned, a little uneven. Martha served them anyway. They sat at the kitchen table. No centerpiece, no napkins folded fancy like at Erica's house. Just 2 plates and 2 forks, and a third chair across from them, empty but not ignored. Loyalty isn't words, Martha said softly. It's who you don't laugh with. Ben nodded slowly. I didn't laugh at you. I just didn't speak up for you. That's a difference only when you've got the luxury of hindsight, she replied. They ate in near silence, but not uncomfortable, like people learning to walk across a cracked bridge, carefully, deliberately, hoping the wood still holds. After breakfast, Ben cleared the plates without being asked. He didn't make a speech, didn't promise change in grand terms. But when he rinsed each dish and dried them properly, Martha felt something begin to shift. At the door, he turned. Would it be okay if we did this again? Just small things. I'm not asking for help. I'm asking for space to prove I can show up. Martha didn't answer right away. She looked past him at the neighborhood street, at the hedge they used to trim together in early spring. Come next Sunday, bring butter. The next weekend he did, and the weekend after. Sometimes he brought bagels, sometimes just himself, but he came early, and he never came with excuses. Not once did he mention money, the house, or Erica. Eventually, he mentioned the therapist he'd started seeing, mentioned looking for a smaller place of his own, mentioned that Erica had filed for separation. There wasn't a fight, he said, buttering toast 2 weeks later. No slammed doors, just a text that said, "I think we want different things." Martha simply nodded. Maybe now you'll figure out what it is you want on your own. Diane popped in that afternoon to return a pie tin and spotted Ben crouched under the sink, fixing a leak. "Well, I'll be," she muttered to Martha on the porch. "Looks like the boy's finally got his wrench out of his pride." "He's not asking for a key," Martha replied. "He's just knocking gently." Late that night, as Martha sorted her mail with a mug of mint tea, she paused at a heavy envelope, thicker stock, return address from a nonprofit foundation. Inside was a letter on embossed paper. "We're pleased to inform you that your name has been selected as the title for our newest annual community grant, the Martha Green Resilience Award. Inspired by your personal advocacy and financial clarity, we believe your legacy deserves to empower others." She read the letter twice. Her hands didn't shake. The pen hovered above the check for longer than it took to brew an entire pot of coffee. Martha sat at her kitchen table in the soft morning light. The checkbook opened flat, her name already scrawled in firm cursive on the top left. The amount line was blank. So was the signature. It wasn't the amount that troubled her. She could afford it. A fresh start for Ben, a little security, maybe a down payment again, this time without Erica. The number would have been generous. But the silence in her chest told her what her signature couldn't. It wasn't needed. She capped the pen, tore the check straight down the middle. Then again. She dropped the pieces in the recycling bin and made tea. Later that week, she texted Ben, "Come early Saturday, bring your laptop." When he arrived, she had folders spread across her dining table, charts, program outlines, a logo mock-up with clean serif lettering, second foundation, building boundaries, funding futures. Ben blinked. "Is this yours?" "Ours," she corrected, sliding a folder toward him. "If you're serious about rebuilding something real, I don't need you to prove worth. Just help me prove what dignity looks like." He took the seat across from her, still unsure. "You really trust me with this?" "I trust what you do next," she replied, "not what you say." That evening, the dining room swelled with voices, chairs scraping wood, the scent of roasted vegetables and rosemary bread curling through the air. Jordan arrived with a bottle of wine and a legal pad. Diane came loud and early, bringing her famous pecan sweet potatoes and immediately offering unsolicited advice. The young couple, the new homeowners, brought salad and sincere gratitude. Talia walked in proudly carrying a tray of slightly lopsided cookies. "No raisins, Grandma," I remembered. Martha ruffled her hair. "You remembered everything that matters." The table wasn't fancy, but it was full. They passed plates, scribbled notes on whiteboards about mentorship programs, small grants, youth workshops. Ideas flowed like coffee. No one talked about Erica. No one mentioned the house. No one said the word, just not even once. Talia leaned against Ben's side after dessert, her head on his arm. "Can I help design the logo? I have ideas." Ben smiled, brushing a crumb off her cheek. "Only if I can be your assistant." Across the table, Martha caught Jordan's eye. He gave her a small, satisfied nod. Diane raised her wine glass and mouthed, "Told you." When the guests had gone and the plates were washed, Ben offered to vacuum while Talia swept under the chairs. Martha walked slowly to her small office at the end of the hall. She stood in front of the photo shelf, the one that had sat neglected for too long. The picture from the sleepover sat in a wooden frame now, next to one of Henry in his garden hat. Talia and Martha, laughing over flower-covered bowls, eyes closed mid-laughter. A memory earned, a bond untouched by apology or guilt. She reached into her desk drawer and pulled out a plaque Diane had surprised her with that morning. It was clean and simple, black with etched silver lettering. She pressed it against the wall near her desk, adjusted it until it was perfectly level, and let it settle into place. Plaque. Love with receipts. The corner of cedar and linwood looked different now, cleaner, brighter. As Martha slowed her car beside the curb, the late spring light cast soft gold over the front porch of the house that once held her silence. The shutters were painted navy now. A kid's red tricycle leaned against the porch railing. Hanging from the eaves, wind chimes danced in the breeze, soft metallic notes echoing out like laughter from a different life. She didn't park, didn't knock. She just watched. The new owners were outside, the young couple from closing day, pulling weeds side by side, gloves dusty and knees in the mulch. A toddler squealed nearby, chasing bubbles across the lawn. Their happiness didn't stab her. It warmed, because this was a house now filled with gratitude, not expectation. Martha smiled, nodded once, and drove on. Back home, the kettle hissed on the stove as her inbox chimed with updates from the second foundation team. Ben had just finished integrating their new donor dashboard, colorful, clean, even a testimonial tab. Talia's designs for the summer mentoring kits had arrived, complete with watercolor icons and handwritten fonts. Her hands moved slowly, methodically, pouring the water, steeping the tea, folding back the top of a manila envelope. Inside was a letter, real ink on cream paper, unfolded carefully. Dear Ms. Green, it began, in slanted handwriting. I used to think saying no meant I was a bad daughter, or a bad mother, but I watched your story unfold last year. I saw what you did, not out of anger, but out of purpose. I followed your interviews. I heard you speak. And when my own son started treating me like a savings account instead of a person, I said no. I set terms. I protected what was mine. Thank you for showing me that boundaries don't burn bridges. They reveal who was walking with you. With gratitude, Marlene R. Martha exhaled slowly, hand resting flat on the letter. She didn't cry, but she felt something move inside her, something quiet and necessary. The Foundation's annual report now read, families funded, 3 workshops, held, 12 mentors trained, 9 unapologetic decisions made, countless. Ben, now full-time with the Foundation, handled logistics, accounting, and the occasional public Q&A. Diane, of course, ran community events with the flair of a retired cruise director. Jordan had been named to the board. And Talia? Talia had just finished designing a logo for their teen mentorship track, a house with no walls, only pillars. We don't need walls, she'd said, just strong things that hold people up. That evening, as twilight softened the edges of her quiet bungalow, Martha sat in her favorite chair, the one by the window with the crocheted throw across the back. The windows were open, the garden outside buzzed with cicadas and the faint clinking of wind chimes she'd installed herself. Her tea, still hot, sat beside her on the windowsill. She held the framed photo of herself and Talia, the flower-streaked sleepover one, and reached over to place it beside her newest one. The entire Foundation team gathered around a picnic table, arms linked, faces open, everyone leaning just slightly toward her. Martha glanced once more at the plaque near her desk, Love with Receipts. It still made her chuckle. She picked up her cup. The ceramic was warm in her hands, grounding. Another envelope lay nearby, this one unopened, addressed in Ben's handwriting. She'd read it later. No urgency anymore. They spoke often now, and not about fixing the past, but about building what came next. Outside, porch lights blinked on up and down the block. The world kept turning. People kept asking. Some would take, but now Martha had her own terms. She took a slow sip, then leaned back into the hush of her home.